The sweetest harvest. The morning air hung thick with the cloying sweetness of overripe peaches and the metallic tang of something Sarah could unquite identify. She had arrived in Millbrook 3 days ago, drawn by the promise of documenting authentic rural traditions for her anthropology thesis. The town Samuel Harvest Moon Festival was legendary among folklore enthusiasts, celebration that supposedly dated back to the settlement's founding in 1847. Walking through the town square, Sarah noticed how the decorations seemed almost too perfect. Cornucopias overflowed with impossibly vibrant produce. Tomatoes that gleamed like polished rubies, corn kernels that caught the light like amber, and apples so red they appeared to pulse with their own inner fire. The abundance was staggering, yet something about the display made her stomach clench with unease. The townspeople moved through their preparations with an efficiency that bordered on ritualistic. Their smiles never wavered, their movements synchronized in ways that suggested years of practiced repetition. Mrs. Henderson, the festival coordinator, had welcomed Sarah with enthusiasm that felt rehearsed, her eyes holding a glassy quality that reminded Sarah uncomfortably of the porcelain dolls in her grandmother's attic. As the day progressed, Sarah began to notice the peculiarities that others seemed blind to. The produce, while beautiful, emanated an almost narcotic fragrance that made her head swim. Children who bit into the festival apples developed a dreamy, distant expression, their pupils dilating until their eyes appeared almost black. Adults who sampled the honey-glazed corn moved with the languid grace of sleepwalkers, their conversations becoming increasingly disjointed. The festival grounds sprawled across the town's central park, where ancient oak trees formed a natural amphitheater. Their branches, heavy with Spanish moss, created shadows that seemed to writhe and shift independently of the wind. Sarah found herself drawn to these darker corners, where the celebration's veneer of wholesome joy began to crack. In the fading afternoon light, she discovered the shrine. Hidden behind a cluster of vendor stalls, a crude altar had been erected from stacked stones and twisted branches. Offerings of the choicest fruits and vegetables surrounded a central depression filled with what appeared to be rich, dark soil. The earth seemed to pulse with a subtle rhythm, as if something vast and patient breathed beneath the surface. Sarah's academic mind raced to categorize what she was seeing, perhaps a remnant of pre-Christian agricultural rites, a harmless folk tradition that had survived the centuries. But her instincts screamed warnings that her rational mind struggled to process. The soil in the shrine's center began to bubble and churn. Tendrils of something that wasn't quite root and wasn't quite flesh emerged from the earth, reaching toward the offered produce with an hunger that felt ancient and insatiable. The vegetables and fruits didn't simply decay, they were absorbed, their essence drawn down into the waiting earth with a soft, wet sound that made Sarah's skin crawl. Understanding crashed over her like ice water. The town's impossible prosperity, the residents' glazed contentment, the supernatural abundance of their harvest, all of it fed by something that slumbered beneath Millbrook's fertile soil. The festival wasn't a celebration of the harvest. It was a feeding ritual, and the townspeople were both willing participants and unwitting cattle. As darkness fell, the true nature of the celebration revealed itself. The festival-goers began to shed their human pretenses, their movements becoming more plant-like, more rooted. Their skin took on a greenish pallor, and when they smiled, Sarah glimpsed root systems where teeth should be. They swayed in unison, a forest of human-shaped things, drawing sustenance from the entity that had claimed this land generations ago. Sarah tried to run, but her legs felt heavy, unresponsive. Looking down in horror, she saw thin green shoots emerging from her shoes, anchoring her to the earth. The festival apple she had absent-mindedly tasted hours earlier had done its work, and now she understood why no visitor to Millbrook's Harvest Moon Festival had ever left to tell their story. The last thing she saw before the transformation claimed her completely was Mrs. Henderson's knowing smile, and the terrible recognition that next year's festival would need new decorations. Sarah would help provide them.